Moving on, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Geoffrey Jackson, who's a member of the governing body, as I understand, he heads the teaching committee, is that right?
He's a member of two committees, but my understanding is that each of the governing body members are members of two committees. I understand he is a member of the writing committee and the teaching committee.
Yes. Well, I have to say my information as of September 2014 also puts him as a member of the personnel committee.
Well, that's different to my understanding.
Well, we'll leave personnel out of it for a moment. So, but Mr. Jackson is, I'm not sure what the designation is, whether it's coordinator or chair or responsible for, but he's in effect the head or responsible for the teaching committee, isn't he?
No, I don't think the chairman is simply the similar role of being a coordinator of the branch committee, is that he just coordinates the work of that committee, but he's doesn't have like executive authority over the committee.
Yes, no, very well, that's what I'm getting at. So he's the coordinator of the teaching committee.
I don't know. I know he's a member of the teaching committee and of the writing committee.
Yes.
But his actual function, I don't know.
And the teaching committee has the responsibilities set out in the branch organisation manual that we were looking at a few minutes ago, is that right?
Yes, the role that is mentioned there.
And that includes what will be taught in the various Kingdom of Ministry schools and a whole plethora of other means by which publishers around the world are taught about your word, is that right?
Some of the schools would be the responsibility of the service committee. If it's schools for elders and travelling overseas, the service committee would care for the...
And Shepherd the Flock of God is the guiding textbook which would guide also the activities of the teaching committee.
I think that would be probably something approved by the entire governing body, but perhaps coming more from the service committee because it's service related.
And I understand that you've not served as a member of the governing body, so I'm asking you from what your understanding is. But your understanding is that the 7 members of the governing body, as a governing body, meets weekly, does it, every Wednesday?
Yes, so those who are present meet weekly.
Yes, and it'll be that governing body as a whole, or those who are present, who would authorise the various publications and guides and guidelines and so on, is that right?
They would give the final approval for the publishing of them, yes.
Now, you will have heard yesterday that senior counsel representing the Jehovah's Witnesses in Australia and the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society of Australia said that Mr. Jackson would not be likely to be able to assist this commission because his role is in the translation of matters. Now, that you accept as a clear variance to what you've explained in your evidence.
No, sorry, it's not. The translation, it comes under the writing committee, as I understand, which is what Mr. Jackson is a member of. So.
Yes, but he's also the coordinator of the teaching committee that has many other responsibilities and not translation, not so.
Yeah, as a member of the governing body, he has a number.
Can you explain, Mr. O'Brien, how it came about that senior counsel representing your organisation was given instructions that Mr. Jackson's role is confined to the translation matters when it clearly is not?
His role, as I understand, is principally translation, but translation is part of the writing committee. As a governing body member, he has numerous functions to perform, not just as a translator.
Yes, indeed, and as a consequence of those numerous functions, he would have knowledge across a whole scope of activity of the governing body, not so?
I guess he would have...
Far beyond translations.
Yes, yeah, more than translation.
Mr. O'Brien, did you give those instructions to senior counsel?
The instructions regarding Mr. Jackson? Yes.
It led me to believe that there was little that Mr. Jackson could add to the discussion. And no doubt that's what you expected would happen. Is that right?
That's true, and I still concur with that.
Well, I'm starting to form a totally different impression, I have to tell you.
Well, if I could explain that Mr. Jackson, his two principal roles, as far as I understand in the governing body, are with the writing and the other committee, the two committees I've mentioned, the writing, and part of that involves translation. Mr. Jackson was in the Pacific Islands for many years, understood many of the Pacific Island languages, helped.
Well, I understand that he may have a role in translation, but I'm now coming to understand he has a significant role in relation to teaching, but also the general affairs of the Jehovah's Witnesses.
He wouldn't have involvement in matters to do with the Coordinators Committee, which handles legal, nor with the Service Committee, which handles service matters.
But he sits at the top with others in relation to all of those committees, doesn't he?
No, they're different governing body members are assigned specifically to different committees.
I understand that, but nevertheless, the governing body, I assume, has the ultimate say in all things.
When things come back to them as a governing body, yes.
And he's a member of that.
Yes, he's a member of the governing body.
He's here in Australia.
He's with his father. Well, I understand he's still in Australia. I don't talk with Mr. Jackson, but I understand his father is gravely ill, very close to death, and that's why he's here, to be with his father.
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien, you've given evidence that you gave instructions to counsel on the point of Mr. Jackson not being able to assist and his activities being with relation to translations. And I, as a matter of fairness, must put to you that those instructions you gave were false, were they not?
No, I don't believe so. Mr. Jackson does oversee the translation work, but as part of the writing committee member, which he is one of the governing body members on that committee. So,
and I suggest to you, I put to you, that when you gave those instructions, you knew them to be false.
No, I disagree.
And by giving those instructions, you sought to mislead the Royal Commission to protect Mr. Jackson from any potential summons to appear.
No, I disagree. I think the reason we asked consideration to be shown to Mr. Jackson was the grave situation of his father, the very reason he's in Australia.
Yes, well, and in relation to that, in view of what I've put to you, perhaps you can answer this. How are we to know if what you say about Mr. Jackson's compassionate circumstances is in fact true?
We could provide an affidavit if you wish. We could provide doctors' reports on his father, whatever the Royal Commission would like. I'm sure we can arrange for that.
How long has he been in Australia?
I'm not sure, Your Honour, but I think maybe a week or two, a couple of weeks perhaps.
He's been here since before the 14th of July, hasn't he?
Yeah, I don't know specifically. I could find out, but I don't know exactly when he arrived. But it's only within the last couple of weeks.
I have nothing further.
Yes, thank you, Mr. O'Brien. That concludes your evidence. You're excused. I'm not, at the moment I'm troubled by what I now understand as to the role of Mr. McDonald in the organisation. And it does seem that, having regard to the issues we've canvassed, he would be able to help. Do you want to respond to that?
Your Honour, I can respond. I can certainly try and take further instructions for reasons that are obvious. I think that Your Honour is entitled to whatever assistance should be provided to Your Honour. My understanding remains, as I was instructed, that in relation to these legal matters, Mr. Jackson would be of no assistance.
It's not legal matters that the discussion has moved a little from the history to the future.
Yes.
And at the moment, I can presently understand the injunction that's felt in relation to elders.
Yes, sure.
But a deliberative process for the church, it's possible to imagine it being one which was not entirely conducted by elders. But secondly, a process which the church engages in because of its adherence to the Bible, which allows a person those who are deciding the matter have no doubt has committed abuse to nevertheless remain in the community, raises other issues as well.
Yes, sure.
And they won't have eluded you or Mr. Coyne as they were raised.
No, Your Honour.
I mean, if you put yourself in a position to care for other people and you fail, then consequences flow. Now, these are issues which clearly have emerged from our discussion, and we would like as much help as we can. And as he's in the country, it would seem logical that we ask him to come and help us.
I understand Your Honour's point, and I'm not seeking to not address Your Honour's point.
No, I understand that. And having said that, I appreciate the circumstances of his father, but we all have to face those difficulties from time to time in our lives.
Yes, Your Honour.
And what I'm going to say is I would like you to take up the matter with Mr. Stewart, and we'll make arrangements sometime next week to hear evidence from Mr. MacDonald, unless... sorry.
Jackson.
Oh, Jackson, I'm sorry. Mr. Jackson, unless Mr. Stewart comes to me and says that can't be done.